Welcome back to Questing Beast. I'm Ben. Today we're talking about 4 different styles of game mastering. 4 secret styles, you might say, since these are things that people don't seem to talk about very much. These styles are very easy to understand, and it's very easy to shift from one to another by tweaking one little aspect of your game mastering that I will explain as we go on. They also vary wildly in terms of their popularity, with one of them being popular with 55% of game masters and others being rejected by nearly all of them. Which of these styles lines up with your style of game mastering? Which of them might improve your game if you switch to it? Let's get into it and find out. Here's a diagram of the 4 different GMing styles that I'll be talking about. What these bars represent is when game masters will be using game mechanics and dice to resolve a situation, and when they will be simply declaring the result through GM fiat. Each of the different boxes represents how difficult a task might be, from trivial all the way to impossible. The black boxes that say roll in them indicate that at that level of difficulty, the game master would call for a roll to resolve that situation. I call the black range within each of those styles its roll window. The blue pass boxes indicate that the game master would tell the players that they automatically succeed if they were trying to do something at that difficulty level, and the red fail boxes indicate the opposite. The players would automatically fail if they tried that. I found that this question, when does the game master simply decide the results of a test, has a dramatic impact on the experience of playing an RPG. But this is a topic that for some reason isn't discussed very much in RPG rulebooks. Usually the most advice that you'll get on this topic is they'll say if it's a very trivial task like walking across a room, then it automatically succeeds. And if it's completely impossible like a 50-foot long jump, then it automatically fails. If you're lucky, they might mention something like you should only roll if something is at stake, but even then they often don't go into a lot of details. Now, what I discovered when I polled all of the game masters who are subscribed to my channel is that when you do ask them this question of when you should roll and when you should not, these factions emerge that have very clear ideas about the right way to do it. But these factions are basically invisible since most people don't ask this question. Take a look at these 4 styles again and pause the video if you want to. Which of these 4 styles do you think is actually the most popular? Because I don't think it's the one that is typically recommended in game master guides for RPGs. Let's look at each of these styles in turn and figure out how popular it is and why its fans like it so much. But first, a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Vaults of Varn 2nd Edition. Vaults of Varn is my favorite RPG that was developed out of my Knave rules. I got to play in a session of it at the Page convention earlier this year, and I absolutely fell in love with its dreamy sci-fi Mobius-inspired world and the huge number of random tables it gives you to generate your own setting for it. Check out this preview of the 2nd edition, which is crowdfunding right now, link down below. All right, the first style that we're going to be talking about is the wide roll window, the motto of which is, there's always a chance. In this style, you're going to be rolling for most things, unless the task is completely trivial or absolutely impossible. If the task is just very difficult or very easy, you're still going to be rolling even if you are pretty sure what that result is going to be. I feel like this is the style that most RPG core books recommend. After all, they've taught you all of these mechanics, and they kind of want you to use them. It's the second most popular of the styles, with about 19% of game masters preferring it based on the poll that I ran. What kind of game masters would prefer this style? In my experience, it seems to be people who want fairness in their RPGs. They want less GM fiat, and they want the mechanics to kind of simulate a world. It works really well with groups that want to master the mechanics and optimize their characters. Someone who's into this style might say, yes, the odds of success or failure might be very low at those margins, but it's those rare chances when they come up that make for amazing stories that you remember for a long time afterwards. On the other hand, when you're running in this style, it might end up feeling like the game is governed more by RNG than it is by the player's choices. And as someone who puts a big emphasis on player choices over mechanics, that's something that I might struggle with a bit. As a very mechanics-inspired style, it might cause players to focus more on their character sheets and therefore decrease some of the immersion into the world. And because it has a wide roll window, that means that you're going to be rolling a lot, which could slow down the game. The next style to look at is the low roll window. In this one, very easy tasks are going to still require a roll to succeed, and very difficult tasks aren't going to get a roll at all, they're just going to automatically fail. This is the least popular of the 4 styles, with only 12% of game masters preferring it, and I think I see why. It's a prepare to die kind of style, where the focus is on inspiring tension and fear in the players rather than boosting them up. This is a style of play that is deliberately tilted against the players and really makes them claw for every success. It could be good for groups that want to play in hardcore mode or want to play in a grimdark universe where things are really stacked against you and everything's always getting worse. Now, of course, a style like this is going to require very strong group buy-in, because if you don't have that, it's going to feel like the game master is very antagonistic towards the players, like he's really piling on the punishment and it feels very unfair. So you're really going to need to have a group of players that want this style of play and are looking for a GM to provide it. Now, the third roll window is the most popular among game masters, with 55% of them saying that they prefer it, and that is the high roll window. This is the one that I most associate with epic adventure, high fantasy, and genres like that. The way that it's set up, if the players are in a very easy situation, then the game master says that it automatically succeeds. And if they're in a very difficult situation, then the game master still gives them a roll, an opportunity to succeed. This allows them to feel like anything is possible. This is a style of play that tilts things in favor of the players. It gives them a sense of power, and it really moves things along because it eliminates all of those easy rolls. My impression is that most people think of this roll window, this style, as being the default for good game mastering. That being said, there are some downsides to it. For example, players might feel like their victories are a little bit less earned since things are tilted in their favor. Also, by allowing players to roll their way out of danger, it might promote more acting over thinking and relying on higher stats to save them rather than on careful planning to avoid danger. Now, the final style that we're going to look at is the narrow roll window. This is the third most popular style, with 14% of game masters preferring it, and it is the one that I most associate with the OSR style of play. So unsurprisingly, this one is my favorite. When players are in a very easy situation, I just tell them it automatically succeeds. And when they're in a very difficult situation, then it automatically fails. I do this to promote player skill over character skill and to promote out-of-the-box thinking. By making it very easy to succeed at low difficulties and very hard to succeed at high difficulties, I put a lot of pressure on the players to make that difficulty lower, to not rely on the dice to save them, but to come up with a better approach. This means you get less Hail Mary gameplay, where characters just try random, often very implausible stuff to see if it's going to work. I can just say, nope, that's going to fail, try something else. So this puts a lot of restrictions on the player's actions, but restrictions can breed creativity. This is also the roll window with the least amount of rolling, which I feel speeds up the gameplay quite a bit. And by removing a lot of the dice, I think there's also a lot less of the abstraction that dice adds to gameplay. So players are not thinking about what their character is doing through the lens of the mechanics. Things become a lot more practical and immersive, and they don't think about their character sheet as much. They're just envisioning what their character is doing in the world. Of course, even though this is my favorite way of doing things, it's not going to be perfect for everyone. For example, it's going to be less realistic than maybe the wide roll window, because you're not going to have those 1% chances of success that can be thrilling. This also requires the most GM fiat of any of these styles, and that's not going to be right for everybody. It's not going to be a big deal for OSR people, probably, because there's the rulings over rules mantra that gets repeated a lot in OSR circles. But for other groups and other styles of play, this could be a problem. Similar with the low roll window style of play, this is going to require a lot of table buy-in to make sure that everyone is on the same page about how we're going to be playing. So that's my breakdown of the 4 roll windows. Of course, there's hundreds of different game mastering styles out there. These are not the only ones, but I thought it was interesting to take a spotlight and put it on this particular aspect, when you roll and when you don't roll, and seeing how my subscribers broke down within that structure, which ones they leaned towards and which ones they really didn't like. Let me know down below if you have any strong feelings about these different styles, if there's one that's really attractive to you, and if there's ones that you absolutely can't stand. Hopefully this video was helpful for you, and if it was, remember you can subscribe to the Questing Beast newsletter or the Patreon, where I put out weekly bonus posts about RPG theory, like this one, or world building, or whatever else I'm thinking about. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.